All right. All right. So we got a first in 1,800 shows. We can't broadcast on any platform, so we're going to record it offline. We do have people in the Zoom room. Laura Eisenhower is with us. I think this is the third time she's come on. It's a powerful day, a very powerful day. We had some powerful broadcasts today. I've been watching your stuff, Laura, as usual. And I love it because it's very diverse. It's funny. You make fun of yourself. You're just you all the time. Whatever you're feeling, you're putting it out there to the extreme, and I love it. And you can come back the next day and just laugh about it. But there's a lot of wisdom in what you're saying, and you've been through a lot. And I think you have been out there, what, 10 years or more, 20 years, right?
Well, I've been in mission orientated for a super long time, public about 10, 11 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know you've come under a lot of pressure. I think a lot of people are feeling that pressure now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So one of the things that I've noticed about what you've been writing lately, everybody's been talking about one of two things, right? And one I'll just refer to as the fear-based programming, which I'll just say it, coronavirus. And the other one would be the savior-based programming, which I would call QAnon, but there's many of both. It's like too much light can pull you off center, too much dark can pull you off center. There's not any light and dark. I mean, at some point, do we embody this higher understanding that we have and look at this thing from a higher perspective? Or do we continue to experience it in all its extremes? I don't know. I don't have the answer. But I really appreciate the fact that when you come out and talk about these things, you say, and I would say the same thing. Hey, I hope this is all going to come true with this whole thing with the Q movement and the information that's coming out. But at this point, I only can trust myself.
Exactly.
And, and I love that you can say that and stay as neutral as possible. I think it's hard for anybody to stay neutral, with all the stuff going on. From time to time, you're going to flip a little bit. But yeah.
Right.
So, yeah.
Should I share thoughts about that or?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important to stay neutral. I haven't been one of those, extreme Q followers. I appreciate those who, are listening to all that and informing the rest of us. But it's important that we work on ourselves as far as integration of polarity, personal sovereignty, and really looking at where our energy is going, because we're in a global showdown of forces. And really what's going on right now is, can they create enough loosh to tip the scales in their favor so that they can bring about the darkest of agendas and take us into a new world order? Or can we unplug from all of that and still, pay attention to what's going on without having it take our energy? And can we focus on the creative imagination and what's really possible and call our energy back? Because this is a war on consciousness. It's a war on our energy. We have been siphoned off of for thousands and thousands of years. There's been harvesting technologies put in place. And, the whole thing with Project Mockingbird and, fake news and all the different psyops we've experienced, it's really hard to know what is truth. And so it's good to have an open mind and to give something the benefit of the doubt. Our ultimate trust, I think, is dangerous. I think we have to ultimately trust ourselves and what this window is all about. We're here to remember who we are. That is the ultimate sabotage, is that we've forgotten. And we can't rely on something outside of ourselves. But something outside of ourselves is going to play a big part in how this all goes. But what we generate from the inside out is going to influence how this, turns out. So if we find that we've put all our hopes on, something, and we're sort of neglecting, the integration of polarity and our ability to lift the veils between the dream realms, the multidimensional realms, and where we are in the physical plane in this lower density, then we are not discovering our inner treasures and awakening the things that are going to be the deciding factor of what we experience. Yeah. I feel. I mean, there are going to be some things set in stone, so we have to be prepared. Yeah. But yeah, it's to me, it's a battle of our energy. Can they get more loose by scaring the piss out of us? Oh, they're going to just knock on our doors and give us mandatory vaccinations and there's a 5G rollout? Or are we just without fully having the proof, thinking that everything is like, you know, the cabal's being taken down and all these mass arrests are happening. Well, we're certainly seeing indications of a lot of positive in that regard. And I'm not here to ditch Q at all. I don't think it's been a negative thing. And a lot of the people I know that follow Q are very strong in who they are, and they aren't really giving their power away. But yeah, the most important thing is containing our energy, calling our energy back, and working with the human vessel and consciousness that we hold, and beginning to explore the things that we have been blocked from, and giving ourselves the time to activate it. Because once we do that, we start to open up gateways and we can perceive higher earth energies. And I mean, we got to figure we're kind of lucid dreaming. And I'll talk about the aspects in astrology right now that are really in our favor.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about that. Yeah. And let's talk about what you said just a little bit. So, I mean, on one hand, we can look at everything that's happening in the external. I mean, this has all been about polarities. And we've got these two huge polarities playing right now. You've got this one that's this extreme of the same old, and you got this other one that's an extreme of, you know, a physical perfect manifestation, you know, justice and things coming into balance. And then we're stuck in the middle. And I guess the question is, and you really probably already answered this, but what can we do? You know, what can we really do at the end of the day? And you're saying to work on ourselves, to continue to align ourselves and bring balance to ourselves, and that somehow in the quantum, in the spirit scientific, we will affect what's happening out there in the external. Is that?
Yes. I mean, if there's a collective consciousness, each one of us is a part of that collective. So the energy that we carry becomes a part of that greater collective. And if we're giving our power away to either side, whether it's the fear, anxiety, and doom and gloom, or somebody's going to save the day, and we're not fully in our divine center generating really amazing energy that is made of our dreams and visions and focused intention, I think, you know, that's where we have to be really careful.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and that's just something to be mindful of. It doesn't make Q bad. It doesn't make, you know, looking at the potential of these things happening that are detrimental bad if we put our attention on it, because we need to be prepared. I mean, I always look at things from the lens of wilderness expedition leadership, and that's my background, or being a sailor. I mean, if a big storm is coming, it doesn't do very good to just say, well, no, just positive thoughts, it's all going to be fine. And if we don't, you know, prepare ourselves, it could be detrimental. We certainly aren't going to be able to manage the terrain of any sort of difficult wilderness, you know, sort of scenario without being prepared. Does that mean we have to be fear-based? So we have to look at the dark part of it as a reminder of, okay, well, just in case, you know, that's why we have lifeboats. That's why we have life jackets. When it comes to the positive, we can give it good energy, but we also have to come back to ourselves and realize that the biggest deal right now in this particular window period, and it's been this way since the very beginning, with a lot of attention on this particular time in our history, is to begin to understand who we are and what we're made of, and understand that we're generating a lot into the field. And if we can generate energy that connects with this greater vision, and we can work with cosmic and natural law and understand how things are different in this current period that we're in because of a lot of different factors, and we can tune into it and tap into it. I mean, I can name 3 things right now. The sun has moved through the sign of Fiacus since 2010, which connects us with the ether. The mother arc energy is activating as the 13th gate. There's been grid workers and light workers shifting, you know, the planetary grid network. And there's, you know, so much more than we can imagine on the positive side. But those that are very privy to the dark side, or are whistleblowers to the dark side, aren't necessarily going to understand all those other things because they haven't been on that side of things, just as much as some people who have been gravitating to the positive might not know the layers upon layers and of criminal activity and the depth of like the human trafficking, the pedophilia, and satanic ritual abuse. So we can't expect that everybody's just all of a sudden going to wake up and get the full picture. But what we can do is encourage, you know, the frequency output, and also the boundary to what we shouldn't take in. But we can still be observers from a place of neutrality and still take care of what we need to take care of, so that we're not blindsided because we decided that there's no way that's going to happen. And that's where the preparedness needs to come in. And with this quarantine, I think nobody can deny that, we can't just pretend that like there isn't something seriously manifesting in our reality right now that is pushing us to look at how do we need to be prepared? What do we need to be prepared for? Is it just about building the immune system? No, we're dealing with a possible 5G rollout. We need to look at the impact of radiation. We need to take care of our thyroid. We need to clear heavy metals out of our bodies, and start to prepare the human vessel on a consciousness level and on a physical level, and go beyond the virus part of it and look at the ramifications of some of these things that we're seeing with the 5G. So there is a huge showdown happening, and we play a huge part in how this is going to play out. And potentially this is a crossroads that everybody's up against a huge choice. And potentially this is, where the bifurcation is really, taking place. Because with the Pluto-Saturn conjunction, death, rebirth, alchemy, transformation, are we rising as the phoenix? Are we becoming the butterfly? Or are we emerging more locked into the system than we were before, which has sought to enslave us more and more all the time? They're constantly rolling out the next sort of assault. And we've gone this far. We can handle this. We've made it this far. We got through the 2012 hump, and Hillary not winning. And I'm sorry, I don't want to get all political because it's not political. We're talking.
You can say whatever you want to say.
But I mean, there are some real dark players that did not take office. And I'm not saying that like I've got Trump all figured out, but I'd rather feed a good energy than be a basher and like a hater. It's just not, me. But when there's enough indications of something that is absolutely a pawn for the cabal, and there's enough indications of that, those people aren't necessarily in office. But some would argue and say, no, Trump is just as bad. But we got to look at the huge progress we've made. And this has happened in his administration. So let's not make it about him. We've seen human trafficking rings be called out. We've seen Hollywood just like lose its idolatry or like it's not being fed as much as it used to. I mean, I think we've made incredible progress. And, just looking under a Twitter thread of some of these celebrities, it is very like, 10 comments that call out pedophilia and pedogate, and maybe one or two saying, you're the greatest actor and I feel like you're my father,
Yeah.
So, I mean, so we got to look at those sort of things. Like some people are like, nothing's happening. There's no mass arrests. It's like, well, what about all the CEOs stepping down? Epstein did get called out. Yeah, there's still a long way to go. Weinstein, yeah, that's still small, but there are a lot of people really focused in on the truth. Lots of censorship, yes, but when we look at what has taken place with so many people holding platforms that are bringing information that would be otherwise really impossible to get because of the MSM and the false media, let's just hope that there is a major rippling effect of these mass meditations. And even if people can't, be red pilled, that the vibration raises out of the mind control and we all link up in a unified field. That is the most important thing. If we try and red people who aren't ready, then we're still in the battle. Let's focus on love. Let's focus on forgiveness. Let's focus on how can we be in service in a real way where we're actually supporting people who are struggling, instead of just being like, oh, well, they're not red pilled. So, because that's like the most important thing. That will come for many, but let's not make that the priority. We can be a resource to help wake people up, but let's make it the priority to be the most incredible member of our communities, the most incredible partners and parents, and become really resourceful and really learn how to work with our innate abilities in the face of adversity, because really adversity is nothing on us. We haven't even begun to remember our capacity to transmute toxicity, all sorts of assaults and dark weaponry, and the power of our creative imagination, and our abilities to manifest in an unbelievable way. And the aspects right now are giving us this opportunity. And I'll talk about that, when you're ready for maybe to shift into that. Yeah,
we'll shift into that in a second. Yeah, there's two things, that brings to mind with me. One is the energetics. And what I mean by that is, at the same time this is all happening, I see two signs recently, and I'd say this month or this past month. One is people that we thought were not awake starting to ask questions. And obviously what's going on in the world is making people think, you know, like we had a couple on yesterday from Australia where they haven't had a lot of this activity with the virus, and yet they've shut everything down. And they said in their community, people are starting to say, hey man, something else is going on here. So these are, and then I've seen other comments like, you know, my sister hit me up, you know, I've been telling her this stuff for years, and now she's hit me up. She goes, oh my God, you're right. But the other thing that's happening as well with people all around the world, you know, is these dimensional visitations, this high level intel coming in. There's some type of, there's more clarity, I think, collectively and individually with some people at least in getting messages. And again, it's no different than what we're dealing with in the physical world, because how do you know who's behind those words? And it goes back to the same thing. You got to go into your heart, discern for yourself, and so on. But as an example, last night we had some energy come in, and that energy came in, and it was an air of like honor, respect, kind of like martial arts when you're going to have a, you know, you're going to have a match, and they don't hate the other opponent. They have a respect and an honor for them as a warrior, even though they may not like them or whatever. But this energy presented itself and said, the level of love has been raised enough. We have to leave now. You know, it wasn't, hey, the reptilians got kicked off the planet, or this forced, or this or that. It was and I'm not saying that this is just one occurrence with two people, but I see the vibration of it, the frequency of it in other people's posts and narratives that they're putting out. So that's happening at the same time. And then what you're saying is very, very true. You can't just turn your back on it. What do, well, you can go ahead and comment on that, and then also go into what are the stars showing?
Yeah. So yeah, the love is like the immune system of the planet. I mean, babies won't thrive unless there's, you know, love from the mother. We can't heal or transform if we don't unconditionally love the shadow aspect of self. So we have to hold space for those that are really struggling or locked in the negative ego or really confused or acting out. I mean, even though it's hard and we all have our moments, we can at least rectify and self-correct as best as we can to return it to that place. Just as much as we have to return to our divine center. Every day we get knocked off our center and get ungrounded, or start to go into a mental loop, start to lose our energy to it because it's very draining, and start to, you know, kind of go in the frenetic fight or flight, where decision making is not going to work so well.
Yeah.
The love energy is like the immune system in ourselves as well. If we want to boost the immune system, we need to stay in connection with that. But again, we're not just dealing with a virus here, and there's a lot of different, you know, information going around about, you know, what this really is. There's other information that has been taken down connected to even worse things being rolled out. So what do we do when something's pushing us to the edge? We can do one of two things. We can have a breakthrough and begin to, you know, remove the seals and fences, and whoa, there's the rest of ourselves. Wow, it's made of magic. It's made of all sorts of potential. It's starting to upgrade our dormant DNA. Well, can we remove the projections that it's all woo woo and it's just like whatever, and it's just like, oh, that's just ridiculous. And a lot of people go there. Or in the face of adversity, are we just putting all that on somebody else, somebody outside of ourselves? Yeah. And so this is a part of human maturity. We're starting to mature as a human race, to begin to stand on our own 2 feet and not have something, you know, parent us. And
Yes.
The parents that we've had have been not healthy, because we've had this patriarchal agenda. We've been dealing with imposters, false archetypes, and of misrepresentation of the feminine. So these things have been targeted. So why don't we rescue what's been targeted for a really, really long time? Because that is the medicine. If we don't focus on that, then we're still going to be wrapped up in this loop, and it's only going to get worse. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think it really, you know, comes down to that, and just, you know, being mindful, keeping the vibration high, and a lot of people need self-love. I mean, a lot of people are holding on to old paradigm programs too. I mean, we have to ask ourselves, what are we still holding on to? Because that is going to make us sick. So a lot of people are trying to figure out, well, where is it coming from and who's responsible and who's going to save the day? But why don't we just not worry about that as much, but we should still put our attention on it, of course. But like, regardless of where it's coming from, it's asking something from us.
Yeah.
And this could be the most amazing thing that's ever happened. But we're kind of in a race against time right now. And I don't mean to say that in a fear-based way, but these things got to be figured out, sooner rather than later. And the biggest thing to remember is, the distractions are going to waste our time. They're going to interfere with our own intuition saying, can you just shut that down and take a deep breath, and just really breathe into the moment and maybe do something creative, maybe be in the now with your family and really generate something beyond survival. Because I said this in a recent interview. When I lived on the road and I was like really broke, when I was in the sort of fear-based thought forms or poverty consciousness or I'm screwed, it didn't lead to anything good. And then when I just took it upon myself and I sort of went back into the mindset of, what it's like in the wilderness when you really don't have a whole lot. It's not like the money system is there. You're dealing with nature. You're dealing with food that you bring or food that you find. There's a whole other world opens up. So in those moments, I learned to catch myself and I would shift the energy and I would allow myself to call all my energy back and feel abundant and feel totally connected and feel like I'm in the perfect place at the right time. And this is awesome. And then all sorts of amazing things happened. And I was able to manifest money. I mean, literally, like I would find money. I found a $50 bill one time and I needed $50 to do something that same day. And I would meet people that were high vibe and the synchronicities and the magic started to flow. But if I wasn't able to be in that mindset, I would have been entangled in something else that could have got me into a lot of trouble and a lot of danger. And I definitely have been in a lot of danger. So I'm not saying that like it was, one flash in that moment. I mean, we're dealing with targeting and, calling out a lot of stuff is going to invite targeting, but there are things that we can do to mitigate it absolutely compromising us and taking us down and putting us on a trajectory that is going to manifest the fears that we're grappling with in any situation that provokes it.
One of the things that I've picked up on over the years is with that narrative of the 1% and all that, the cabal, is that they obviously had some esoteric knowledge, some secreted knowledge, and skills and abilities, things like that. There's Project Looking Glass. There's all kinds of stuff that's out there. But what I'm saying is that I've picked up on the fact that, and I'm asking you what you think about it, that because they know what our power is, if we get to a certain level of awareness, is why this has all been constructed to keep us down. Because they know if we get to a certain point, there's nothing they can do. There's nothing they can do because we run everything from here. We affect them from here. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is exactly what they're afraid of. And this is what we get to realize in the here and now, that we're on the precipice of something huge.
Yeah.
We can be, exactly what they fear, or we can continue to be their food source. And so they're going to generate as much fear as they possibly can for that to continue to happen. But the light forces, I mean, it's like, if somebody's battling an illness, is the immune system going to win? Are you going to recover? Is this going to take you down? I mean, that's just as fearful. We're facing the same kind of thing. So what needs to happen is we need to go on an inner journey. We need to really get to know ourselves more. We need to get the messages from, deep within ourselves. Their knowledge of us, I mean, they know more about our potential than many people know about their own potential.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to use tools to help unwind this myself. And I mean, okay, if they understand astrological alignments in certain times of the year that are good times to do rituals, if they're, operating from, a knowledge of, astrology and the occult and, just how to really strategize ways, which they've done already, to keep us from the fullness of our DNA, our 12-strand and beyond abilities. And if they can master the ability to keep that down, well, we got to, say to ourselves, okay, well, here's the challenge. We've been given a puzzle. And it's not like, it's as damaged as we think, but it keeps staying in these feedback loops because of what comes through the media, the television, what our parents pass down to us, even what the pantheon dynamics pass down to us of not really getting along and splitting off into different agendas and having their fallen parts and having digressed races that are under like the reptilian control, and then the ones that want to heal, that are working with individuals to reconnect to their soul matrix. I mean, there's so many things, but we're in this oneness. I mean, it's like something in our body that has, toxicity, but it also has, a lot of like good energy. We want to feed the good energy to transform it, to alchemize it. But that doesn't mean that, we need to reject any part of ourselves. We need to handle the shadow. We need to handle the negative ego and where we bought into some of these dark agendas. And that's part of that, inner discovery. So what they know about ourselves is something that we need to get to know about ourselves. And this is something to, like totally embrace. And some of the tools that can help us get to know ourselves have been very projected upon because they've been misused. So if anybody's going to work with certain tools, they have to have the highest integrity. And it doesn't matter what the tool is. Even cooking a meal, you have to have the highest integrity to be mindful enough to look at what you're putting in the food, and to making sure that, the space is hygienic and there's, so it's mindfulness. Sometimes, accidents get made, but, when there's agendas and there's intent, and the intent is to keep us looping in not knowing who we are through also, chemtrails, geoengineering, fluoride in our water, vaccines. I mean, it's just like the list goes on and on and on. But it takes one epiphany to get the ball rolling in our favor.
That's right.
Once we reach higher dimensional energies, we can handle what's coming at us. If we can't reach those higher levels, then the toxicity and the impact of what it's attempting to do is detrimental because the mind control has not been broken. And the social engineering has not been broken. And so people are still waiting for somebody else to fix it and solve it. And yes, people are working real hard to try and fix it and solve it. But every single one of us has a responsibility and a purpose to, do what's necessary to generate the solution and learn to, conquer that war within the self and not allow your consciousness to be stolen from, to be manipulated, and to take back our minds and really learn to think for ourselves. There's nothing wrong with being inspired by information. There's nothing wrong with any of that. But, it's really important that people give themselves a lot more credit and start to open up the treasure chest. And that's my intention when I use astrology. How can I help connect people to the 0 point? How can I help liberate them from the wheel? How can I help them to see what has a huge grip on them? And also where the path of awakening, lies. And for a lot of people, they're born with it. It's powerful star seeds. I mean, everybody's got the potential to become like one with their avatar consciousness or embodying of their avatar consciousness. So every chart is unique. What is getting in the way, and what can one do to break the negative patterning, whether it's ancestral, whether it's, still, holding on to the abuses of a narcissistic partner or something terrible that might have happened along the way. This, and we need one another for mutual love and support, because there's a lot of shame connected to doing this really deep work. And I mean, people aren't, there's a lot of really unkind people out there that really inhibit people from speaking their truth. And that's, that's probably the worst thing ever, are the people that just aren't kind to one another.
Like when somebody transitions and they come to you and say, hey, get over it, that type of frequency. But I love what you said too, because there are people all over this world that are connecting to their higher aspects, that are pulling down higher frequencies and anchoring them. And what you were saying a minute ago about, what are you going to do? Are you going to wait for someone to come do it for you or save you or whatever? And really, you're sending it right back to the individual. What can you do? Well, this is what you can do. And no, it's not going to be easy. And shadow work is rough. And there's a lot of stuff that's unconscious to us that's deep down in there, and it's scary and it's ugly, and we don't even remember it. And we need each other. You're right. We need practitioners. We need people to help us go through that stuff, that have gone through it. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that there are people that are connecting at that level, that even though it's not really got a physicality, it's actually countering that energy, because at the end of the day, that whole initiative that we're talking about is energy. It's all energy. But you know, there's people that are actually countering that, and you know that because you've been doing that for years, and a lot of people that you know in the community. So they're, you know, I love the point that you make that anybody can do it, whether you've ever had a past memory or anything.
Oh,
To just to
totally.
sit down with intent to connect to the universal, and you know, as we all know, it'll speak back to you.
Totally. You know, I used to have like panic attacks, you know, and I knew, you know, this isn't my truth. I'm not a fear-based person, but there's trauma, right? For whatever reason, we all have carry some level of trauma. You know, we're electromagnetic beings, but the electrical system is the most impacted by trauma. And so the when the trauma gets triggered, we don't get the downloads. We all of a sudden get caught in this pocket of, you know, really like intensified energy, and it
Yeah,
produces all sorts of symptoms. And so when we can just take a deep breath or work with herbs that can just really help, you know, calm us back down.
yeah,
Um, yeah, you know, we can overcome things in the moment. And it's like all these stories, all these what ifs, but if none of those things have really happened, we're still in a powerful creative, you know,
yeah.
situation. So,
What's your
um,
what's your take on, you know, let's just talk out of 8 billion people, the center, the core, light workers, unawakened, nice people, mean people, whatever, but that this worldwide quarantine, this isolation, as an energy impact in the realm, where do you think we stand as a human species on average, the middle person in that 8 billion? Do you think they'll see the power of the moment, spend time with their family, start shedding shadows? And I don't mean maybe consciously the way some people have done it, but I mean just making a decision in the moment. Or do you think that they're more fear-based? Do you think we swung one way or the other?
yeah, it really comes down to the individual. And I think we're at that point in which we have to make a choice. I think a lot of people are tired of survival, tired of being distracted, tired of reenacting negative patterning that has been passed down generation to generation in the ancestral lines or just in the societal programs and what is sort of encouraged subliminally. And I think people, you know, realize, okay, um, you know, what if we lost a loved one? I mean, when we
Yeah,
face death, you know, sometimes the priorities for people just really, you know, hit them hard, like, whoa, wait a second,
yeah,
you know? And so a lot of powerful breakthroughs can happen. And I think, you know, human nature is to have that kind of breakthrough and to focus on the priority and flow with it all. If a person is not ready, and if they're really kind of stuck in the mind control or narcissistic personality disorders, or, I mean, that's a whole other thing, but, you know, there might just be just anger and rage and making life miserable for everybody
yeah,
else. And then, you know, looking at everything in the news and waiting for answers from something external. Um, you know, this is an incredible opportunity. I mean, this is why I always love the wilderness metaphors, because, you know, if you're in the dark, you're in the wilderness, you know, and there's bears or mountain lions or snakes or scorpions. Yeah, there's a big threat that you might not wake up, you know, okay.
mm-hmm.
You know, so what do you do in that moment? It's like, it's almost those moments really push a person. And this is what
Yeah,
I learned when I was out there. It's like, you know, what if I just run fear? Then they're going to pick up on the fear,
mm,
you know, depending what creature and how they kind of operate. Or I can find just oneness and total communion with everything. And I felt so comfortable with the rattlesnakes and scorpions and whatever, with the bears nearby. It didn't matter. And so, okay, we've got some really gnarly species as far as extraterrestrials and hybrid humans, and, you know, the cabal and really twisted and dark things that they do to sustain power. That is horrifying. The abuses are absolutely horrifying. And we're here to rescue the victims. We're here to stop human trafficking and help the children. We're seeing indications. I don't know, you know, how solid those indications are. They're getting more solid, it seems, but I mean, that is the focus. So when we look at the nurses and doctors or people that are running into, you put out a fire, they have a risk that they could be taken down in the process, but their mindset is, I'm in service,
yeah,
and my life is worth
yeah,
somebody else's life. Now that's not for everybody. And it's not like, okay, you know, sacrifice yourself for somebody else, but there is a darkness that surrounds us, but it doesn't need to take us. We've
Right.
already had it take us down. We have way more wisdom and experience than we can imagine. We've had lifetimes after lifetimes. We've been all over the galaxy. We've been in galactic wars, exploded planets, cataclysms, holocausts. Our history is so darn dark, and here we are still. So I just think that we have to like be in the darkness, and in the darkness find that internal bliss. Like at night, I really focus on that. Like, am I going to bed all kind of stressed, and do I have insomnia? Well, I've got some herbs that help, but I'm feeling like super bliss. And I'm not even talking about like, you know, smoking a joint. I'm talking like, you know, real awesome herbs that like totally soothe my nervous system. I feel the ecstasy and bliss and euphoria in my body. And I even had a dream that a huge tsunami came, even though that's not one of the threats on the planet right now. And it was like, okay, gonna die.
Yeah.
And it was in it, and it was beautiful and had like rainbows. And then something said, just let go. This is a beautiful transition, right? And the wave took me, and I died, but I entered a whole nother dimension. And then another part of the dream was just everything collapsing and crumbling, and it was like the old world crumbling. So what part of this paradigm shift do we want to be a part of? Do we want to hold on so much to the old paradigm programs and attachments and patternings that have really sabotage us, or the fears and the traumas, or do we really want to work on it? Do we really want to heal it and ride the wave of what organic alchemy is capable of doing? Because these things are not just some woo-woo fantasy. These are proven scientifically. These are things that are available to us in the here and now, and the astrological alignments, you know, show that. So we can make a choice to ourselves every single day.
Yeah.
And we all have plenty of time with this quarantine to step back and really work on this. So it does depend on the individual, just to get back to your question. And so when we're in mass meditation, we need to really set the intention that that our higher self is going to help remove the veils, remove the darkness and the dark clouds around those people, so that they can open themselves up to some sort of epiphany to shift their perspective. And so that's one thing that we can really focus on. Is how can we support those that really don't have a whole lot to go on for whatever reason? How can we, you know, help create that direct connect for them so that they can experience, you know, source energy in their own higher self and feel that guidance from the inside out.
I love what you said about the like the workers, the doctors, nurses, you know, other people who are putting themselves in harm's way, and that's not for everybody. But the point is the energetic force of what they're doing. It overrides, or it supersedes the physical action, although the physical action needs to be honored. But anyone can do that in the spectrum. Anybody can put that energy forth in so many different ways, including you know, a broader self-awareness, an open-mindedness, working on alignment, and all that type of stuff. But yeah, so I think that's a great example. What about the time period? Sandra was on a couple of days ago, and she talked about March 13th through April 13th, and I don't think there was any astrological kind of correlation to it, but of course Easter's coming up. I don't know much about the stars. I've noticed the last couple of nights some pretty cool stuff, but I don't know what it means. Can you kind of tie that together with what's happening?
Like certain planetary alignments right now?
Yeah, like what's going on between, like, say, now and Easter?
Now and Easter, yeah. So yeah, and it's definitely like a helpful, but you know, really intuitive and tapped in people don't really need to know everything going on astrology. I mean, so you're, you know, connecting with these alignments and planets on the highest level. I mean, that's obvious and clear, but you know, it can be helpful to know. It's reassuring, sure.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that really stands out that makes me feel really good about everything is, okay, so we've had this Pluto-Saturn conjunction, but Pluto right now is conjunct Pallas Athene. Pallas Athene is the goddess of wisdom. Mm. And the goddess of wisdom is an archetype that we all have. But when we go through the underworlds, when we go through a Pluto experience, and it takes us into that feeling of like death or loss or the mystery, and, you know, I mean, if we're tuned in enough to our intuition, you know, like a caterpillar knows, like, okay, well, it's time to go in the cocoon, and you know, it's just part of this process to become a butterfly. Well, if you mind controlled that caterpillar, it might like be like, what the hell do you think you're doing to me, putting me in a cocoon? And you expect me to believe I'm going to emerge as a butterfly?
Yeah, right.
But so, I mean, there's a difference between like how mind control literally takes us away from our instincts, our intuition, and all that. So Pallas Athene is the goddess of wisdom. So usually when we're in the underworlds, we need to find the crone, you know, the light of wisdom, that sometimes there's nobody that's going to come and help. Sometimes there's a feeling of total abandonment and isolation. And it's an opportunity for us, which is why it's happening, to find our inner light and our higher wisdom.
Yeah.
But Pallas Athene, the goddess of wisdom archetype, is helping to hold our hand. That's why a lot of people are feeling really positive, feeling like really connected to, you know, their wisdom body before they have to, you know, find the crone. But one of the things, you know, that's really awesome, but let me just explain first. Mars and Saturn have been conjunct, and it's now in Aquarius. Aquarius rules a lot of things, so do the planets, as far as, you know, the list of things that each thing rules or is connected with, and what organ or what gland. But Aquarius, well, first of all, connects with the nervous system and neurology, and the knees.
The knees. My knees have been hurting like hell, man.
Morgan, big reset.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Mars and Saturn conjunct in Aquarius, which hasn't happened since 1992, because Aquarius rules like social events and community and friends, and Saturn's all about limitation, restriction, and structure and rules. And then Mars being conjunct Saturn, it means that our willpower is being limited. So when we say, hey, you know, I just want to go and travel, or, you know, do something that we would normally like want to do, Saturn's like, nope, you can't. And right now it's affecting being social, you know, with the, you know, stand 6 feet apart and everything's canceled and this and that. But that's a very temporary transit, actually. We're still, you know, dealing with the Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter. Pluto conjunction is really, really shining a lot of light on the wisdom that can come from this transformation, and a lot of people are connecting into it. But one of my favorite things that's going on right now is Mercury conjunct Neptune. It would be a little bit of a bummer if Mercury was like square Saturn or being limited. It would show that humanity as a whole is really, really under the net and is totally controlled and has no sovereignty. Mercury conjunct Neptune means, okay, if we can know that this is here, it's like if we don't know a resource is there, then we're not going to find it. Like you could have, you might have like 10 gallons of water in the garage, but if your friend or partner didn't tell you they put it there, then you're not going to go find it. You might think it's not there. So it's important to know these things are there, because Mercury conjunct Neptune, with this Pluto influence, Neptune connects us with the multidimensional spiritual realms, connects us with the unseen realms. It connects us with our creative imagination. Mercury is our mental body, and our mental body has been subject to mind control. But our mental body is the magician. The true vibration of Mercury is to manifest things through the throat chakra. But we're dealing with thyroid issues. We're dealing with possible, you know, symptoms that start with the throat and then go into the lungs that cause us great grief because we can't speak our truth and we can't manifest the dream or vision. We have to know that that's there. You know, the mind control is not as heavy on the mental part of us as we realize. It's just trying to manage things on a social level. Now, a lot of people have the mind control remnants and they're still pushing the AI, and there's a lot of that still circulating around. But in actual fact, on a cosmic level, we have access to the multi-dimensions. And so depending on how a person relates to Neptune, it can do one of two things. It can make a person feel really lost and confused and sort of in a fog and just absolutely like, you know, almost like haunting themselves with everything that is like negative. Or it can spark great inspiration, connects us with the multidimensional, like I said, and the creative imagination. And one would hold like the mindset of an artist or a musician, where you can reach into inspiration. You can tap into things that aren't necessarily going to be things that other people say to you. It's something that you reach because you're an artist or a musician, right? But we all have those gifts and abilities. Somebody might say, well, I just don't have those abilities. Well, of course you do. The only reason you wouldn't is because Saturn or some outer conditioning or some outer negative abusive force might have knocked you from embracing that part of yourself, or said, oh, that's not practical, or oh, you're not talented. You know, a lot of those stigmas are still, you know, people are still carrying. So the fact that Mercury is conjunct Neptune means that, you know, and this is happening Friday. I don't even know what day it is or what's going on.
No, I don't either.
Thursday. We have the capacity to really go into that zone. So let's just have fun with it. You know, we're in quarantine. Let's create art. Let's create music and laughter and write down affirmations and visions and really amazing things to say out loud that go beyond anything that we've been taught, something that's innate to us, something that reminds us of the mystical realms and advanced civilizations we used to live in and the advanced embodiments that we used to hold. Let's engage in that and dance with that and generate it into the world. We have the capacity to do that. And if anything's going to shift the planet in the positive, it's going to be that. But again, like you said, we don't want to polarize ourselves to too much light, too much dark. Now, working with the Galactic Heritage deck, the timelines that are showing, you know, that everything worked out and we're on an organic, harmonious timeline, every single species, you know, has gone, you know, in some sort of digression, some sort of loss, some sort of frustration, the mission is not being accomplished, some sort of polarization, too much to the light, too much to the dark. But in the future timelines of all these species, what this deck shows is it was integration of polarity and integration of all these fragmented aspects that helped them to achieve the higher worlds and help them to completely bypass these dark New World Order artificial timelines. The ones that weren't able to go into those zones are the ones that still are holding survival fears or bought into, oh, transhumanism is going to save the day, or that mandatory vaccination is going to keep you from getting sick.
Yeah, it's that lesser God frequency inside of us where we think we know better. You know? So I know you're connected to the Sophia energy, the Mother Goddess, Divine Feminine, whatever you want to call it. And that's been something that's been put out there for the last 5 years or so, or maybe even longer. Where do you think that frequency stands? Do you think that it's made some progress? Do you think it's making a difference at this point, that the feminine energy is rising?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm connected to it. Everybody's connected to it. There's no soul on this earth who's not connected to it. That is like, it's like, you know, saying you're connected to your birth mother. Well, hopefully, I mean, I know that some people don't feel that way because not all our relationships with our biological family is that great, but but that's beside the point. Yeah, everybody's connected with the Great Mother.
Yeah.
Ever since 2010, when the sun started to move through the sign of Fiacus, which is ruled by the ether, we entered a phase, and it's not just a phase, we entered a era, we entered a timeline shift of the Great Mother, you know, returning in a sense. So where did she go? Well, that stems back to, you know, Lemurian Holocaust, Atlantean cataclysm, Sumerian Egypt invasion that finally led to the point where the mother energy wasn't able to be in the planet anymore. And we lost the aqua ray mother arc energy, which is in the core of the planet and was in the core of the planet. And because of all these horrific events that took place, with that energy being gone and the reversal technologies being put in place, everything, you know, got focused in on the Baphomet behind the scenes and the satanic ritual abuse and how the cabal has been, you know, creating and funding both sides of war, you know, infiltrating religions, Christ Templars, wiping out the Essenes, wiping out, you know, all those that held the ancient teachings.
Yeah.
And so the mother energy left, and it's mostly been behind the scenes, this, you know, these dark, like groups, you know, doing dark rituals, the human trafficking aspect of it, the stealing of life force and siphoning of life force through programmings, through media to keep those loops alive, like I was saying before, and through, you know, adrenochrome and targeting the innocents, and also utilizing the chi of the earth and also of, you know, the elements in order to generate artificial timelines. And that energy is finally returned. So what happened, you know, with this worship of the Baphomet, and then we see the Moloch and all these, you know, other things, Baal and all these other names, you know, outer religions would represent the feminine. Oh, there's Mary Magdalene, and there's the Virgin Mary, and, you know, to placate that part of us that needs a mother, to connect with the mother. Well, it never really properly depicted what those energies represent and how much more to the picture there actually is. I mean, there's so much more to the picture than we can possibly imagine. So our junk DNA actually holds the sacred union of the masculine and feminine that once it reaches the 12-strand capacity is actually the hierogamic union of the Christ Sophia. So the mother-father arc, 14th gate, 13th gate, and how that relates to the guardian founder races and all the grid work that's being done. When the sun started to move through Ophiuchus and the ether energy came back, it began to correct the reversals. There was something called a reversal 55 that made the ether energy unavailable. And that's why there's been a lot of illness. There's been a lot of survival. There's been a lot of manipulation in people giving their power away to make a lot of money and to feel some level of self-worth. Oh, you're rich, you have status, right? Or, you know, you're on the other end of the scale, which is, you know, being victimized, or you're in the middle and you're just like, just trying to be a human and trying to be, you know, like, okay, you know, find a good profession, or, you know, be the person that nobody understands, you know, like a lot of us, and go off and learn about all this crazy stuff and go through a lot of rabbit holes, and honor the fact that, like, okay, you know, eventually, you know, maybe people will understand, you know, the star seeds that have come, light warriors, whatever you want to call them, the guardian groups. But the thing is, like, everybody's got this.
Yeah.
So the ones that are really helping to activate people aren't like the chosen ones. They're not, you know, better than anybody, but they can really switch the lights on. And now that the sun has moved through Ophiuchus since 2010, and the mother ark's been activating and has returned to the planet, and it's shifting the grids and everything else, this is what is going to transform everything. And I've been focused on this my whole life. I mean, since I was a child, it's just like, okay, you know, and I've learned a lot, you know, how do I express this? Like, what do I do with this? And there's been amazing, you know, people that have researched a lot of it, and lots of dots to connect. So that is available to us. And so a lot of my presentations are called Return of the Cosmic Ether. It has a lot to do with this elemental, which is very purifying. It's very, very powerful, and it's available to us right now. And so this is a very comforting thing. It has not been with us and since 2010, right? So a lot of people were thinking, okay, 2012, end of the world, or, you know, the beginning of something new. For a lot of people, it felt really uneventful, but, you know, everything's been going pretty darn well. And there's been a lot of infiltrations that have weakened this momentum, and that's okay. We have to make it okay. But the mother energy is everything right now. And it doesn't work separate from the masculine. This is not about, you know, the goddess returning and it's all about a figure, or, you know, that's just as manipulative as the Christ returning. I'm not saying that that's not true on some level, but it's returning through us. It's returning through us having the capacity to say, this junk is not junk. This junk holds the essence of our true divine parents and the Christ Sophia child and the guardian founder races and the 0 point unified field. All these dead sciences that we've learned in school convinced us that this is pretty much all we got and this is what we got to work with. So what's available to shift the tides is something we all have to embrace, because if we don't, how is it really going to work for us? But the beauty is that the mother energy, the father energy, the unconditional love of source will never give up on us.
That's
right.
right.
And the reason this planetary body even came about was to help us to go through whatever we needed to go through to learn the right use of power and to begin to learn how to overcome, you know, these dark agendas that have really sought to digress us to such a degree that we lose our soul matrix, which doesn't allow us to go back to all these different levels and different harmonic universes where exploded planets took place and major galactic wars. So this is our chance to get all that back. Worst case scenario, we don't get it back. Does that mean we lose the mother, father? No. We have something that will never, ever abandon us. But we also run the risk of walking away from it because people are very cynical because of what religion has done. People are very cynical because they're disappointed with the new age deceptions and BS that doesn't really maybe represent the best way to go about recovering these things. I do my best. I don't have all the answers, but I really think it's important to honor all these unique expressions and all the ways that whatever it takes for us to get there. I mean, life experience gives us exactly what we need, but doesn't mean that, like, you know, we're going to have it all figured out. I mean, we got to give each other plenty of room. And the thing is, it's encoded in our DNA. Healing and transforming and alchemizing the craziness that we see around us is encoded in us. And we got to get those codes back. So through sound healing and other methods, we can begin to unlock the mystery of the junk DNA. And we can, you know, begin to see it's not junk, it's not scrambled. As long as we can choose love and we can integrate polarity and engage in the true love story and allow these dark intruders to not capture our minds anymore and cause us to be compromised and also expect less than we deserve. And that's where people need to really break the unworthiness or guilt patterns. And I mean, there's programming upon programming to just keep us from something that already unconditionally loves us. We don't need to prove anything to it. We just have to say, okay, you know, I'm ready. And then something huge is going to blossom from every one of us. So my connection to it is just something that I've felt for lifetimes. I've just really stood strong in union and awareness of it, and came in really quick when I was a child. But my goal is to remind everybody that that connection is just as strong in them. All this
Absolutely.
other stuff is just like, get the heck off us.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about the equinox? I know we had from the morning of the equinox, like right after midnight on the equinox eve, so 12:31 in the morning, we started having for about a 12-day period some really, well, our most powerful expansions that we've ever had, you know, slash dimensional experiences, whatever, information. One of the things that we got was that the grid, as it was shown, and this is, you know, just our version or what was shown to us, 144 had been lit up, which was 72,000 couples, which basically was saying these folks have done enough work. I mean, they still got shadow and this and that, and all that still continues, but they've done enough work that it hit, that it lit up. A lot of other people were forecasting or sharing their experiences during this time, and there was, I'm not saying it was all, you know, fluffy love and light, but I'm just saying that there was a lot of people saying something's occurred energetically. We've lifted, we've shifted up significantly. Did you feel anything like that around the equinox or after?
I wasn't probably very tuned in. I mean, it's just like so crazy. I haven't really been able to catch my breath. I feel like I've been just like, you know, like, okay, answering this text, rescheduling this client, making sure, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
but I've been feeling a lot of really good energy, just like, I mean, yeah, you know, definitely like went into a meditative state, and I found my, you know, center, and I definitely didn't feel like stressed about what I was feeling in, you know, the collective at that moment. But that's all I can really say. I didn't capture the moment enough to really
yeah.
be able to answer that very accurately.
I had and I've still had a lot of moments since then. It's probably been about 3 weeks now of defragging, off planet, scattered. You know, it's like almost like walking in two different worlds. But yeah, I think you know, with Easter coming up, if I look at the last couple of years, I remember in the communities just the energy of it. It seemed to be a pretty powerful time, or at least a powerful opportunity. And I guess it goes along with what you're saying from before. It's still pretty much the same plan basically, or the same operative modus operandi. I mean, it's working on ourselves and trying to contribute energetically, physically, however we can to countering that energy out there.
We have to embrace diversity, because we all have different pieces to all of this. And there are a lot of people, I mean, and it's amazing when I do charts. I mean, literally, like, I'm stunned every day. I told my husband, I'm like, I could literally like write a book without naming names, and I'd have to ask permission. Like, these stories are so unbelievable, and the things that, you know, people are holding, and the different ways that energy works, and how people come in, and the agreements they make. It's just like, I'm just like, it's like, I'm so honored. I'm like, wow, this is so cool. There's a lot of people just trying to come into the physical that are bringing like things beyond, um, you know, what this physical plane, you know, shows us. But everybody has access to that. It just might be coming in a different form. They might need the inspiration. They might need the reminder, where somebody
Yeah,
else is just trying to be heard, and they've been silenced, but they haven't given up on themselves. So there's like so many recipes, because everybody's absolutely unique, but we have the common thread of like that, you know, unified field. And so, you know, we see competing agendas, and, you know, the dark side, the light side, and we don't want to polarize what we think about those things anyway, because there's a lot of people trying to break free of
yeah,
those dark agendas that have been blackmailed, that have been compromised and abused, because it's multi-generational abuse that
yeah.
creates, you know, this continuation on a multi-generational level. And then, you know, those that, you know, might be polarized to the light will manifest an experience for themselves to gain more well, I mean, you know, I don't want to go into all the different recipes and scenarios.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when we embrace this diversity, those that are trying to come in, that need that voice to be able to unleash that powerful vibration that's going to shift the collective, is something that, like, we need to, like, work on and lift people up that are struggling and suffering. And, those that hold a practical foundation can act as the container for these powerful beings that are from other dimensions that have come in during this time for this particular reason, to be able to find a safe haven to ground their energies. I mean, this is where we need to be communicating. If we get too wrapped up in, trying to figure out everything, these conversations are important. Don't get me wrong, between all of us on threads and in interviews. But it's just as important to, really look at the diversity of, different beings, different races, different things that are going on, and engage in more community discussions where everybody feels like they have a voice. They're not just, and there's got to be ways to do it. So meditation's a great way to connect on that level. But, I'm working with people. One of my main goals when I work with people is, how can I help you launch your mission? How can I help giving you a voice? Are you ready to do a podcast with me? Because I don't give a crap if you have a bunch of followers. Like, I'll give you a voice. I'm just, it's like, let's unleash the gift of, each other. And also really hold space for the ones that are struggling, that we might judge as being in the dark and in their negative ego. I mean, we need to have boundaries to them. And it doesn't mean that, it's like, okay, that's acceptable. But, every single one of us can just, like, find that place in ourselves where, wow, this is a really good way to approach reality and one another. And once we solidify ourselves in that, and the numbers begin to grow, obviously the dark agendas are going to fall away. Just like when the immune system begins to build, that the consciousness behind the cancer cell or the virus or bacteria that wants to just attack you, with all its might, even though it was convinced that, it's got a mission, it's going to take you down and make you sick and make you die. It's there's nothing it can do in the face of these level of, like, levels of epiphanies of.
It's like a program, but you upgrade your operating system, and then it goes away.
Archons need a food source. We're in a parasitic system. So if we don't like what we see, we can't be the host anymore. We need to stop being the food source, and we got to determine, where are we still being the food source? Because it will totally convince us that, we're all screwed and New World Order is coming, and, this is going to roll out, and people are going to say, yes, we are going to see a lot happen that is not going to be fun to witness. But, everybody's got their own agreement and their life experience too. So we can't be victimized by this. But the thing is, when it comes to archons, when it comes to dark agendas, it cannot stand or tolerate higher wisdom. I mean, the energy of Sophia and the goddess energy and the Mother Earth has been so attacked in all of us. And so if we can embrace that part of ourselves, that is exactly what they're trying to keep us from doing. So when we can start to see, well, how do these things operate? What have they been feeding us through the media and television shows and movies? Are we those people? Have we become those people? Or can we push the envelope and recapture our true divine essence and divine blueprint? Because, the goddess energy, I almost don't use that term so much anymore, but the planetary consciousness and our connection to the great mother absolutely is the override frequency. And my comfort right now is I see the number 13 everywhere lately. And it's like, whoa, everywhere. Even if it's like 13 thumbs down, it doesn't matter. Like on a video, I'm like, oh, 13, 13, 13. And numbers are significant, but I tend to not, pay attention, like, to the extreme about numbers. But, if we invoke something, if we make a statement, I'm one with this, I'm devoted to this within myself and outside myself, and all, and we are generating reality constantly. We're constantly creating. So, if people are going into fear, use your power and invoke things, use your voice, write things down, say it out loud, until it overtakes, mind control. There's nothing to be afraid of except for the loss of our capacity to, manifest. And that's really where it's at. So this is the showdown right now is on us. Are we going to become a food source? Are we going to continue to be a food source? Are we going to stand in alignment with these greater energies connected to cosmic and natural laws, which are encoded to bring about a movement and shift into higher earth energies and a shift in the paradigm where we can begin to work with advanced technologies that are in tune with our DNA, in tune with nature, and, you know, help us to become the fullness of what we can become. That's encoded in nature. Artificial intelligence is an artificial version. It mimics it. It's the fake version. So of course it's not as powerful. But the problem is so many people are wrapped up in it. They might even say, oh, I refuse AI. I don't want to be vaccinated. But they might not realize that a huge portion of their being is very much hooked into it. And the tentacles can take one over. A lot of people forget about their sexual centers. You know, they can be all woke and be red pill, but they might still be operating from a very, very low energy where their kundalini and sexual energies are being taken and siphoned. So we really have to be meticulous and really just, you know, and not think like life is going to, you know, oh, I don't know. It's just like, we got this. I really feel like we got this, but every single person has to claim it.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I absolutely do too. And you know, the interesting thing is too, that even with everything happening, or everything that's happening in the physical experience, from an energetic standpoint, you can look at the perfection of it. It's like everything that's happening is supporting personal expansion, including being alone by yourself, not being able to go anywhere, dealing with the aspect of control, being controlled, not being in control, cohabitating with people that you might have lived with for 15 or 20 years and gone to work and in the normal routine of life, never actually even sat down and got to know them. You know, somebody said a story today, I think it was somebody who was on the show today. They had a friend and they said after 20 plus years, their partner, their wife, they finally got to know each other, you know, through being isolated with each other. So there's like all this stuff happening, but there is a yin to the yang, and if you really look at it, it's supporting us to expand. You know, it's like we're being assisted for everything that's happening. There's another side to it as well.
Absolutely. I mean, my adversity in my life, you know, being targeted,
Yeah.
almost being dragged off planet. I mean, am I a victim to that? No, not really. I mean, it's helped me to be the person I am today. I mean, we have to learn to leverage adversity. That's what alchemy is. You turn the lead into gold, and you understand that. And so in these times, it's like we can become so much more. And it doesn't like mean that everything's going to go our way in the here and now, but what we can access beyond the physical realms is where it's at. Because if we can access it, we can begin to bring it in, and we can begin to, you know, change the landscape and change the way things unfold. And I mean, I think it's incredible. I think adversity is necessary. I mean, a lot of people take for granted their blessings. I mean, we see it all the time. Sometimes, you know, we have to lose something to realize, you know, what we truly have. And, you know, and it's not about the money. It's about, you know, love. What has the money done to our relationships or our quest for status or wealth or popularity? I mean, you know, these limitations can really serve us. And so the instant gratification might not be there, but the cultivation is something much deeper is. And I mean, I think, you know, that's incredible. There's always going to be some sort of threat, but we've made it this far. Did most of those threats actually pan out? You know, they only really do if we give up and we ask somebody else to do it for us. Now, if we can do it for ourselves and step up, then we can link with the positive military forces. We can link up with the different groups that are working to our benefit. But we can't become complacent and not be a part of that wave. And we can't expect that, you know, they can do it while we just sit around eating Cheetos and like rewrite with friends. Like,
we're gonna have to get
really
off
gotta like do the energy work right now.
Yeah, that was funny. I had a good question pop up and then you made me laugh. What the hell were you talking about? Oh, well, you know, as an old history buff, and of course this is just common knowledge, it's nothing genius, but so many times we know, especially in the last 100 years, that crises have been created in order to mobilize on a nationalistic type of level, you know. So, you know, never really a worldwide level, I wouldn't say, but this is a situation where, because of the level of history that we've had, especially with the information age the last 10 or 15 years, that people are questioning things and they are discerning for themselves. So that pulling together has more of a local feel than maybe it has in the past, where we rallied around the flag and that type of thing. So that is a little bit of a twist, in my opinion.
Oh gosh, it's amazing. You know, there's incredible information. I mean, we're on a quest of knowledge, really. I mean, however it came about, we've been dealing with the tree of knowledge symbolically, which connects
Yeah.
to our DNA. We've been dealing with an artificial tree of life template. We've been dealing with draconian DNA interferences that have actually created sacred geometries that should have 12 spheres that actually have 10, because the DNA strands only go to 10 for the Draco reptilians. So that's just a whole another thing, but that's just a little example. So yeah, I mean, information is huge, but so in our quest for knowledge, it's been targeted with mind control. So we have to just, have discernment. But the greatest revelation is we can gain great knowledge. We can really begin to have awakening get triggered because of the information that we look at. Some of it'll resonate, some of it won't. Both matter, because it really helps us to have critical thinking.
Yeah.
And then when we can, see how much it passes through our bullshit meter, our intuition, then we're starting to rely more on ourselves. And then we start to gain, an awareness that, our self-knowledge and our mental capacities and our ability to free think is actually going to play a huge role in how things turn out. So a lot is triggering that awakening. And a lot of people are right on the cusp of having it become more centralized to their own personal sovereignty, so that they can become the visionary, they can become the manifestor of something that they hold in their focused intent. So, and that's one of the good things. So we are on the verge of going from gaining knowledge and wisdom, learning discernment, learning to not give our power away, whether it's the light or the dark, and finding true self-knowledge, which then begins to allow us to begin to embody, where we can have a break and just not have to think and process constantly and try and figure everything out. Because history's been rewritten. I mean, the dark technologies and the tactics that they've used to separate from us from ourselves, starting from, school age. I mean, it doesn't matter what school system we're dealing with, it's grooming us to look at our history through the lens of somebody's narrative. We don't hear about the Orion Wars. We don't hear about the Lyran Wars. We don't hear about Tiamat or Maldek exploding. How can that not be in the, So the quest for knowledge means, like, we're going to have to go through rabbit holes. We're going to have to gain more information. But the beauty is that we remember ourselves in the process. We start to recover those memories. And it doesn't mean getting stuck in the traumas of the past, but integrating those fragmented parts so that we can begin to move forward and utilize these abilities to begin to, generate a beautiful future. And the more of us that are in agreement to create that, the more whatever is breathing down our neck as the latest threat will not be able to penetrate, because there's no frequency match.
That's right.
You can only enter us if there's a frequency match. Just like a narcissist can't abuse you unless you have a receptor that says, okay, I'm falling for your BS.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that people should feel bad that they got caught up in that, because they believe in their lies so much that you can't pick up on it. I mean, I'm just saying that's just an example. My God, I've had enough of those kind in my life.
I think many of us have, but the point you made is excellent, and that is, if it's still active in your field, it doesn't mean you're a narcissist. But if you have it's okay to beat me up, still active in your field, that lack of worth, and then it's a frequency match. And what you're saying is we raise our frequency, the collective narcissist, for as an example, can't penetrate that shell. Right.
Once you learn, how a person like that, sort of leverage or like manipulates things or leverages things, this is what life experience gives us: wisdom. Because we've gone through it doesn't make us stupid. I mean, we're in a hostile density. We're very, very vulnerable. Loving beings want to give people the benefit of the doubt. They want to believe in the good in people. So of course we're going to have to face, a huge reminder that, whoa, boundaries, keep a person at arm's length until you really get to know them. And take some time, it's just, it's kind of like that. And that also helps us, to get to know ourselves. But when the plug comes in, just like the vampiric cabal and the parasites in the system, If we have a receptor for it, then we're hooked into that negative or artificial timeline.
Yep.
If we lose that and we seal up those plugs and buffer it or you know, completely shield it and it can't enter, how on earth are we going to experience that, you know, dark experience anymore? A lot of people, you know, spin in negative patternings. They keep attracting the same person over and over again, or there's an ancestral pattern that just isn't broken. And then when the, I don't like to label so much, but when the star seed or the light warrior comes into the family, they clear the ancestral pattern, then it changes everything from the past generations to future generations. The whole point, regardless of labels, is somebody who just cannot be mind controlled. Yeah. So refuse the mind control. It's like key.
My friend calls it the rogue frequency.
Ooh, I like that.
The rogue frequency. It's an honorable label in the Vietnamese community. Every family has a rogue frequency that changes the pattern, you know, and it looks very chaotic, you know, in the beginning, but in the end, it all falls into a higher you know, frequency.
And then this is what's happening on a macro scale. We're changing the patterning of cataclysms, pandemics, and destruction. We're going to make it through this. I mean, we've been through it enough. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I said, yes, we are. Look at all the stuff we've come through.
Exactly.
And you know what, the crazy thing is, and you would know more than probably everybody here, we don't even know some of the stuff that we've overcome. You know, some of the stuff behind the scenes, not you know, detectable to the conscious mind. Let's just say that. But the alignment, the path of alignment is the same, and it's not some yogi guru, Far Eastern, you know, New Ages thing. It's just, you know what it is? It's growing up, I think, is part of it.
Human maturity, growing up, being able to face the wounds. You know, the 13th sign that the sun started to move through in 2010. I think the last time it moved through Ophiuchus was in the Lemurian time, and when we were a much more advanced civilization, but that got attacked. But we're in a free will universe, so all this is playing out until we, you know, master, you know, the worst possible threat of our own destruction from the rest of ourselves. But
which is the same pattern that Lemuria had, and well, at least what Atlantis had, from my understanding. You know, it's like more advancement technologically, and you know, less or more ego went with it, or whatever you want, however you want to say it. It's almost like we're picking up where they left off. In fact, we got a transmission, I remember 3 or 4 months ago, and I think it was Egyptian, but it was more of a collective statement. They were basically saying, hey, you know, which isn't rocket science, but I mean, it was all timelines are being corrected, you know, past, present, future, and all that whole 9 yards. And I think that, you know, it seems like that even though we may not know the level of technology that's actually there, that's being kept from us, we may be at the same level that Atlantis was at, in terms of, you know, having an advanced technology and then having the spiritual side run parallel to it. And like you said throughout the show, what are you going to do? We got a choice to make.
Yeah, well, and so we, you know, there's the balance of the masculine and feminine. There's the integration of polarity of light and dark, so that the womb energy can birth the higher awareness and the seeds of our higher consciousness into reality. But we're also healing the Lemuria Atlantis thing, because in higher harmonic universes, the original Atlantis and Lemuria wasn't the root races that we see in this particular Earth history. You know, there's 7 root races, you know, starting with Polaris and Hyperborea. In the Tara system, from what I've come to understand, there was Atlantis and Lemuria. So it's always been about the balance of the masculine and feminine. So you get an exploded planet, and then all of a sudden things, you know, are a little bit off kilter, and the way that the power of the nations run are not as balanced as they could be. But for a while, Maldek held the masculine polarity to the feminine Earth, and then Maldek exploded. And so, you know, there's been nothing but like event after event that has made it really, really hard for us to be born into this world without, you know, being able to maintain that inner connection with the harmony in our own divine blueprint that we all have. Like, that's why the inner work is so important. And I know it almost gets redundant. It's like the inner work, but like, well, you know, that's where we're going to find it and remember.
That's what it takes.
That's what
right?
it takes, because they're still intact there. And in the
Yeah,
highest dimensions, they're still intact. But
yeah,
because of the dark technologies, because of these cataclysms that took place that really threw off the balance of the masculine and feminine, the patriarchal agenda
yeah.
that has been impactful to both the masculine and feminine. And this is what people need to understand. The feminine isn't the only victim. I mean, we need to look at the masculine and all he's gone through. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and we've had many lifetimes, so I'm sure we've, all experienced both genders. I mean, this is a healing of both genders. This isn't just, okay, women are rising and okay, you men just have to deal with whatever we say, and if you don't let me, control the situation, then you're just patriarchal.
Yeah,
It's like there has to be like a profound agreement to heal
absolutely. It's
all this
equal.
stuff together, because
That's
men have
most
gone to
important.
war, they have been
That's right.
brutalized, and they've been taught to not embrace their inner feminine. That's
Yeah,
a programming. That has nothing
that's
to
right.
do with the male species.
No, it's the feminine. Well, it's that
Well,
great
it's the
mind.
feminine rising in
Yeah,
men,
and
because
everybody.
that
Yeah,
got kicked out of them while
yeah,
the divine feminine got exiled. But it's also I mean, it heals both at the same time.
yeah,
So the divine masculine is healed when the divine feminine can rise, because she's no longer a victim, or she's no longer allowing herself to have that control, right? So the warrior has to come in. So
yeah,
she has to embrace her inner masculine. It's just kind of like, gets a little crazy, but what it ends up coming down to is that we're electromagnetic. The electric is more the masculine, the magnetic is feminine. It's a
mm-hmm.
part of our energetic field, right and left brain, and also how our DNA is going to rebuild itself. And as the electromagnetic wave spectrum begins to make itself more available to us, and the spectrum of frequency, which shows all the options we have in terms of like energy connection, with galactic chakras we haven't even heard of,
Yeah,
we got a lot to work with. So it's interesting, the location of where the virus began is in China, because the gateways, the stargates 8 and 9, is there. So a lot of dark energy is in that region, which connects us to the 8th and 9th chakra, because the chakras connect with the stargates.
hmm.
And so does our DNA with the earth grid. So that particular area, I mean, the level of psychic attack that happens when we move beyond the 7th chakra is bad enough as it is. And because humanity is about to take a huge leap and shift the paradigm, that's why the attack, I feel, happened in that region, because they don't want us to start to activate those chakras, which will then continue to go up the scale, because that is the infinity spiral that connects with the
Yeah,
base of our skull that they've put ethereal implants in since the time of Atlantis. And that energetic infinity spiral is what begins to shift us from carbon-based to crystalline. And that's what this attack is about, that the human race was about to take a huge leap. Let's throw them back down. So we need to counteract that and handle, okay, there's going to be lives lost. We're in a war still, but we don't have to have a war mentality. We can be beyond that. Like you were saying in the beginning, and what we both talk about, integration of polarity of light and
yeah,
dark.
yeah.
Then nothing can penetrate us or drag us into the
That's right.
war anymore. We need to activate these places that they've targeted,
Yeah,
because we have the power to do so. Even if they attack it on Earth and through osmosis, we take
yeah,
it on, just like when we're born. It's very hard to maintain that connection to something that, because we're in a whacked planet that is just dealing with all these dark technologies. We need to go out of our way to do that. And that is how we're going to dismantle and neutralize, these dark technologies. And we can leverage the assault and the war that took place there with the awareness of what was it targeting, and then feed good to that part of us, so that we can say, oh yeah, no, you can't break that down. Just like, okay, if a sacred union relationship is targeted,
yeah,
and that love bond is so strong, you come back even stronger. Like, the thing is, they can make us the best of ourselves if we allow adversity to help us to
yeah,
become the best of ourselves.
yeah.
So whatever they're targeting, we have to say, I refuse to let you take that from me anymore.
Yeah, it's like the soul is a spear, and the adversity is the whetstone. You can actually use it. It's like that thing you said about the forest. If you're in the forest, you got two choices. One is to build that energetic force, which you do in the forest by the oneness. And in this case, we use that, and I think that's what we've done as a species. I mean, it's been a hell of a tough, rugged road, but and you're right about the that integration of polarities is a very personal thing. You can't bullshit the universe. And you know, it's interesting too, because about 3 afternoons ago, I took a nap, which I don't usually do. I just knew I had to go lay down, and I ended up waking up, and I was almost crying. The only reason I wasn't crying because I forced myself to wake up because I was bouncing through, you know, the Delta State and up. And what happened was I was in this dream. It was another war, been in many of them, had many of them, and there was a whole type of patriarchal, you know, force opposing us or whatever. And I lost my gun, or it was taken, or it disappeared in my sword or my knife or whatever. And I was standing there, and I swear it felt like the feminine, the great mother energy in me that just said, "Hey, man, how long is this shit going to go on?" You know, and everybody, not because of me, it was really the frequency of the lucid dream. All the masculine energy just dropped their weapons. But it was not coming from a masculine, "Hey, I'm going to kick your ass" kind of thing. You know, I don't know. I just feel like these things that happen to people are, you know, are representations either through image or even physical reality of the energetic shift that's occurring. I think we've done a hell of a job, you know?
Yeah. And we got to read between the lines, you know, what's manifesting in our world, what message is there.
Yeah.
If we see everything just on a surface level, we're going to miss a lot of, you know, really important stuff.
Yeah.
When I was really lost on my path, you know, when it was just like, just nobody could follow or understand anything I was saying. And I know some people probably feel that way, but still, I don't know. It's just, there was always some kind of sign or sort of message. And when I really, really needed it, it would show up.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was so mind blowing that it just reinforced the fact that like, we're in communion and communication with something huge.
Yeah.
Yes, there's interference. Yes, there's AI. Yes, there are things that want to hook into our wounds, our traumas, our greatest fears, you know, and then steal our energy, because all we do is like get on the hamster wheel and the loop of what, you know, and we're not coming from a place of, okay, what do we need to do from a place of calm and clarity. But anyway,
Yeah.
I had a point.
It's all right, man. It's been a good run. Hey,
Oh, I know, but yeah, no, it's just, God.
Man, it's, you know what? Every time I talk to you, it goes by, it's been like an hour and 45 minutes. So I figured by now we'd be heading up to your direction for a visit.
Well, please, I hope you do.
That's not, well, yeah, but that's not going to happen now for a while, I guess. I
Okay,
don't know.
well, you know,
Yeah. No, no,
I think this is going to be over sooner than we think, because we are
I do
part of
too.
like, you know,
Yeah.
accelerating this.
I actually do too. I think so too. And what part of the reason I think that is because people can't, I hate to put it in, you know, but people can't go that long without a paycheck. And you know, you can only print so much money. And I mean, you can only have so much, you know, so it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next 2 or 3 weeks, you know, in terms of what may play out or whatever, you know, has been insinuated or alluded to, you know, by the, you know, by the light, let's just say, or the white hats or whatever you want to call it. So, but yeah, I can't wait to, step foot on at your place in that state. That's one state I haven't been to, and see your husband, my kindred spirit.
Yeah, you guys are welcome.
Yeah.
Like seriously, anytime.
Yeah, I think him and I will probably run off. We'll probably be gone the whole time, out in the woods. Yeah,
Well, you better. Well, me and Morgan will probably be like, no, we're good, and no worries. Take your time. Take your time.
Oh yeah, we have to go have a smoke ceremony like we did in Sedona.
It's gonna be awesome. Yeah, I mean, there's really like so much to look forward to, and I swear, it's like we've been so limited. We've been functioning from such a limited space, and no matter how heavy this is, the answer to a huge question that I think we all have is explore, you know, the vastness of all that you're made of, and make that, you know, something that you can use this time for.
Yeah.
And
right on.
And then, you know, if we'll say the internet shuts down,
if
people want to get my newsletter, you can go to my website, cosmicgaia.org, because If you want to get a one-time newsletter, you know, it's like $5. But I've got like a major invocation that's about clearing implants, being sovereign. I mean, it's like one of the most amazing invocations that I've ever seen.
What's the
And
URL?
it maps out all the astrological stuff going on and how to
Excellent.
handle fear right now. And so you guys might want to check that out. And
So
it's a way for us to stay connected and telepathing, you know,
Yeah.
in case everything shuts down, because,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes the response is like isolation and fear. But like if we make an agreement to really join and connect,
Yeah.
I think that's like hugely important right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that would actually be another thing supporting our expansion if it does go down at all. So what's the URL address for your website?
Oh, it's cosmicgaia.org. And I have a subscription, and it's for newsletters, podcasts, and also the ability to get discounted sessions and quick check-ins. You know, basically I save your astrological data in my database. And
Yeah.
if, you know, a pressing question comes up, I can answer it. And I have to have, you know, certain guidelines so it doesn't get out of control and so I don't get too scattered. But
Yeah.
it's been working out really well. And it's just a really like awesome thing. And it's, I think the prices are really reasonable. And in this time too, you know, I'll work with your budget.
Yeah.
You know,
Right on. Right on.
yeah.
We're all here to support each other. So we need to know how to support you. So I'll put up this cosmicgaia.org. I'm going to upload this to YouTube and on the Facebook. I'll send you an MP4, and you can do whatever you want with it. And I'll put the website in the opening comments. All right.
Nice.
Best to you and your husband and your kids and all your loved ones. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. Thank you for sharing space with us. And yeah, big gratitude, and for, you know, shining that light. But you take care, and until the next time, I'll see you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Todd. Thank you for all that you do. And it's been so wonderful to spend time with you. Thank you everybody for joining us. And yeah, my brain has been on overload, just like lots of sessions every day. And yeah, so did my best to express myself as best as I could. And I
You do an
appreciate
excellent
you guys.
job.
Thanks.
You do an excellent job.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. All right.
All
Bye,
right.
everybody.
Take care, Laura. Bye-bye.